But you never know that you could when you feel that way. Ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold? Dancing in the red and gold.
What's up, Faithful? Welcome to the 49er Faithful UK Live. I'm your host, and once again joining me is El Presidente.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm looking forward to this episode. I think I've given us a more difficult task than what I actually thought I'd given us. To pick out one or two standout players or moments, I thought was going to be easy, but in front of me, I have a list of nearly 30 players, and I am really struggling to narrow that down to my favourite player of the year. Yeah, and it just goes to show what a bloody fantastic season we've had.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm not ready to close the door, Lee, on this season just yet. I've seen some posts in the group where people have stayed away after the way the season ended. They've disconnected. They've not listened to any content, which I get. But we recorded the season review pod on Monday. So cheeky plug, people, if you haven't already checked that out, please do go give that a listen. And when we were preparing for that pod, Lee, going back through the season game by game and looking at the magical moments, it just got me excited. And I thought, we'll put a pin in the draft talk, the free agency talk. And because we had so much fun on Monday night, we had to have a look back at some of our favourite moments. I think Mr. Peplow had said we were going to do a show on top 10 players. How many of you got there, Lee? 30? Did you say?
I've nearly got 30 players here. Yeah. It's because, I mean, I've gone through every single game, looked at all the highlights again. Not just the scoring players, but other players as well. Basically all the highlights. And I've come up with a list of 30. There's a couple of games where I have absolutely zero. You'll probably guess which those games are. But yeah, I mean, looking back, we've been blessed this season with such good play during both the regular season and the playoffs that it's a great time to be a 49ers fan, because you're seeing these players, some of these players, I'm sure they're going to show for years to come in some respect, because some of these players will end up in the Hall of Fame. Definitely.
Yeah. So what we're going to do as well, people, before me and Lee deep dive in our memorable players, favourite moments, for the first time ever, we're going to drop the link in the chat. Anyone who fancies joining us for about 10 minutes a time, Lee, I think we decided just to tell us their favourite moments, have a bit of a chat. I think that sounds about right, 10 minutes per person. Yeah,
so with it being the first time we've done this, because we've never done like a call-in show before, we think if we have 3 people on, each for a maximum of 10 minutes each, obviously that's technically half the show gone, because we tend to keep it down. Well, we try to keep it down to an hour, but ever since I've come on, it lasted a bit longer than that. Apologies about that, Paul. But yeah, we'll get people on and have a listen to what their favourite moments were, because like I said, I mean, I've got a load of them. Some of them are personal to me because of where I was at the time. Others are because they're just unbelievable players.
Yeah. So if tonight goes well, people, we are looking to change the format of the live and get more of the community involved. And before we talk about all that, Lee, I mean, to be fair, it is 8 p.m. in the UK. Me and you could sit and talk for hours and hours, but we do have work. We do have family to consider. But on Monday, Lee, you teased out about a certain giveaway. Now, if people are tuning in for that information already, because we have hit 1,000 subs, we have 2 of these wonderful bobbleheads to give away. Have you got a message for those people, Lee, about the giveaway?
I do. So I've got an idea of how we're going to do this. Let me just get this microphone a little bit closer there. I've got an idea of how we're going to do this, but it's evolving as I think about it. So you will find out sometime in the show today how we're going to do it. It's going to involve some work on your behalf, and you're going to need to be able to pick certain things out of a video. And you need to get, I'm going to say 3 things. You need to get 3 things correct. And then everybody that gets these things correct will go into a hat, and then it'll be a random draw. And obviously, I mean, we like other content creators. We like to get our watch hours up, and at the moment it is really important for us to get the watch hours up, because then it can cover our costs for actually buying the StreamYard subscription, the podcast subscription, because I think I've mentioned it on a previous show. At the moment, we cover the cost of that, and we don't actually get any money in at the moment. We're only 100 watch hours away from being monetized. I have no idea what that means. Honestly, it could be pennies, it could be pounds, who knows. But if it can go somewhere towards subsidising what we pay out to do this, that would be great. Because what we've never wanted to do is reach out to the members and say, look, can you give us some money and support us that way? I don't like going down that route. So if we can generate the cash ourselves by getting the views, then I'm over the moon with that. And that's the way we'll go. So yeah, sometime during the show, I will give you an idea of what you need to do. In fact, I've just given you an idea of what you need to do. But I'll have to have a think about what 3 things you need to look for.
Yeah, we've done that previously. So before we dive into our top moments, everyone, Najee Ellis won't be appearing on the show, Paul. So if those people have noticed the tongue-in-cheek, so the host with the most, Mr. Ellis, slight slip of the tongue on Monday, which me and Lee found hilarious. He introduced me as Paul Gowland. So that is the pun intended there for tonight. But yeah, we are appreciative that we've hit 1,000 subs. As Lee said, we're not in this to make money as such. The Awesome Foursome contribute the StreamYard cost between us. And like Lee said, we don't want the community to be putting their hand in the pocket. But like you said, Lee, I remember when I think we hit the 500 mark and I said to you, we hit 500 subs. Ted Talks Ball says that's the magic number. And you were like, yeah, Paul, we're about 3,000 hours off the watch hour limit. I was like, oh, yeah.
We were.
So I'd kind of forgotten about that at the moment, but it is nice that we're kind of getting closer and closer. And as the chat is saying there, Red Jet Shell, congratulations on 1,000.
Cheers, Shell.
10K. So we would appreciate it. I can see the chat is on fire. You will come to listen to our favourite players. So as you have 30 pre-preparedly, I have a guess some of them will be on my list. Do you want to kick us off, buddy? And let's get this show started.
Right. Should we... We'll do this chronologically, so we'll start with week 1. So week 1 for me, there was the McCaffrey 65-yard touchdown run, where he was virtually untouched all the way down, and that kind of set the scene for the season for us. It got us all excited. I mean, we were down in Stockton for that one. We have now a little mini meet at the Grosvenor Casino, so there's a few of us in there for that. And I think it was the Steelers game. Was it the Steelers game where we missed the first? Yeah, we missed the first 5 or 6 minutes, and we had to basically cuddle around my phone. Yeah, that's it, and watch it on Game Pass. But yeah, I mean, there was that one there, and I also picked out another player in that game. I haven't double started, so it's not part of me top 10, but I did pick out another player, and that was the Ayuk 19-yard touchdown against Peterson, who'd been trash talking all week, saying that Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel weren't going to get any touchdowns on him. So that was quite pleasing to see that, because it kind of shut him up straight away.
I mean, we do need to clarify the Grosvenor Casino in Stockton. It was not their fault. I think it was an outage with Sky. It was just a comedy of errors. There was about 8 of us sat there, red and gold, ready for the season to start. And then there was something to do with their Sky box or their Sky signal. But good job you watched it off one.
Wasn't it a thunderstorm?
Possibly, I think it was.
Didn't it knock out the satellites?
There was something that was beyond their control, but they have
I'm sure
been
there was
gracious.
a really bad thunderstorm.
And like you said, when you look back on the moments, I said it in the pod the other night, like, Christ, the amount of meetups that we went to last year was unbelievable. But yeah, that 65-yard touchdown, it was the little leap of one of the defenders. Well, I think he did like a little spin at the start of the move, and you thought, we all knew CMC was good, Lee. But that just, like you said, set the tone. And I remember that day as well, Drake Jackson getting his 3 sacks. All the talk of that one was obviously Bosa and his high contract, but Drake Jackson flashed some brilliance. But I would agree with you there. I think from that game, that CMC touchdown was the one that lit the touch paper for me.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and do week 2?
So week 2 was the Los Angeles Rams, wasn't it? So we won that one 30-23. again, it's going to look a little bit. I had 3 players marked down. So I had McCaffrey's opening drive touchdown because, again,
Yeah.
it just set the tone. And you thought, wow, Kyle Shanahan's in his bag of tricks. The Deebo Samuel game for me, he had 101 yards from scrimmage. And that fourth quarter touchdown run, I love to see Deebo in the open field and just burning past people. And then I put a defensive player because I thought we can't just keep putting
Right.
touchdowns.
So I've got one player from that game, and I wonder if it's this one.
So I went for the Isaiah Oliver interception at the 25-yard line
Right.
because we all know it didn't work out. But at that moment in time,
Was that the one-handed grab?
yeah. And I thought,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. And I thought,
Right.
26, obviously, we're well affiliated with 26 on this side of the pond. Not your boy Sammy, but they were the 3 players that stood out for me when I went back and watched this game.
So I actually went with a different defensive play on that. It was another interception, but it was Lenore's interception, which he returned to the Rams' 15-yard line. I thought that was particularly well done. He had to get in on the receiver to be able to get that. I looked at the Isaiah Oliver interception, and yeah, I mean, athletically, it was good with the one-handed catch, or the one-handed tip and then into his own hands. But I think the Lenore one was more lockdown cornerish, if that's a term. It's a term now anyway. And I enjoyed that one a little bit better than the Isaiah Oliver one.
Yeah, I think with Lenore, it's just he's a favourite. For me, the Lenore high was last year when we were at the Grosvenor Casino again against the Seahawks, and he made that interception. So that's the standard for me that he has to reach. He might feature later on my list, Lenore, but yeah, they were the ones for me. Now
he definitely features on my list at least one other time. Maybe he's more than that.
So I know why you went to me for week 2, which was obvious because week 3, this you could do a show on your own for week 3 for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I'll hand that back over to you, Lee.
So week 3, the famous 3-day trip to San Francisco for my 50th birthday, the game against the Giants. I mean, to be honest, the game itself, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. I mean, it was a comfortable win, but it didn't really have that many excitable moments. I think I would pick out Deebo's touchdown late in the fourth quarter. That was quite a memorable moment from the day. Other than it being obviously my birthday, I think the good thing about that day, with it being a red eye game for us in the UK, so it was a late game in the afternoon or early evening in the States. With us going to the goal mine, as you know, you can't really tailgate when you go to the goal mine because you're supposed to be there X amount of hours, 3 hours before the game begins. Where this time I was in the goal mine, but because it was an evening game, I was able to meet up with Dave Betteridge, and we went drinking in San Jose before the game. So we'd had quite a bit to drink with the Beamy birthday, and I remember getting round there, doing the paperwork before you go in with Nick Clark and everybody else that's there. And as we walking in, Nick turns around to us and says, "Oh, I've told a British media crew that you're going to do an interview with them." Well, here's me. I've been drinking for the past 3-4 hours. I'd been doing shots of Fireball and all sorts of other stuff. And then I had to pull myself around, sober up quite quickly, and do this interview for the British media. And that went live. Well, I'm saying it went live because it was pre-recorded, but they aired that during half-time on TalkSport, and actually came out quite good. It wasn't too bad. But that game there, I was quite relaxed during the game, whereas previous gold mine trips, not so much, because you don't get to tailgate. So just straight in there, and it's almost like a work atmosphere type thing. And I think that's the first time, that game there was the first time I'd met Brian Culp.
I was going to say Bryant was in the he's in the comments there because that was one of my favourite photos. I think it was you, Bryant, David. I want to say there was someone else, but you're outside Levi's.
I think there was somebody else there.
Because weren't you there with the...
Ty was there as well.
Ty and Jess and the East Coast podcast.
Yeah, so
group.
believe it or not, that was Ty's first game at Levi's.
Yeah, I remember him saying when we met up with him in November. And so just to think that his journey began the same as ours. Now, you said the game wasn't great, and I knew you'd mentioned Deebo Samuel.
It wasn't a classic. Let's put it that way.
I mean, it wasn't the 50 burger that you'd predicted on our
No,
show.
it wasn't.
But
It wasn't.
the thing that stood out for me is the Giants' defense. And everyone's going to be puzzled by this because if you remember, Lee, the Giants threw the kitchen sink at Purdy. They blitzed him on 33
They
to
did.
39 of his dropbacks,
Yeah.
but he had 310 passing yards, no interceptions. And when I look at the offense, as much as CMC was CMC, it was a Debo Samuel. I think George Kittle stood out in that one.
Yeah.
Hargraves, home debut, I've got written down here. And Nick Bosa got his first sack as the NFL's highest paid defender. So, and I've got to give a cheeky nod. Ronnie Bell got a touchdown in that game.
He did.
So
did.
he was on my player watch. Didn't end so well, but game 3.
Right. Let's be fair. He juggled that. He was lucky to keep hold of it.
He
It
did.
wasn't exactly a confidence-building touchdown, was it?
But given the fact that he'd made the roster and at the start
Yeah.
of the season we decided to pick players on the player watch that might not feature. And it was weird seeing a number 10 celebrating on the field again at Levi's after the whole quarterback controversy. So I wanted to give that one out there. What about you? Any other particular player in that game?
No, just the Debo player. I think. I mean, obviously because of the occasion it was, I was just enjoying myself with, like I said, David Betteridge and Lawrence Lofts. We were all stood together in the gold mine. Yeah, it was just a really good day in general. And I tell you what, I love night games. I love evening games.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I think it's just as the sun's going down, the stadium looks so much better. It just gets the juices going for
I
football.
definitely think next time I go out, I'd like to try and do like a Monday night game or a Thursday night game.
Yeah.
I suppose not the best of both worlds, but when we were there in November, we were at Stanford. That was like an afternoon game. That
Yeah,
the weather wasn't great that day, but it turned into a night game. But your 50th birthday at Levi's, that'll stay in your memory, regardless of what the result
Yeah.
was.
yeah.
So
It was a good day.
moving on, week 4, Arizona Cardinals. So there was one place stood out for me, but I wonder if it's the same as yours.
Well, so I haven't picked a player. I've picked a player for this game, and no doubt the player that you're going to talk about is from this player.
Okay.
So go on then, crack on.
Well, this was the CMC game, wasn't it? 4
It
touchdowns.
was the CMC game.
All of them. I couldn't pick a favourite one. I mean, I put my money where my mouth is at the start of the season, and I got a 23. And Tracy was sick of hearing me shout, "I love that man." CMC's amazing. And this was a game, Lee, where 4 touchdowns. He nearly matched Jerry Rice and Ricky Watters for single game touchdown record, including the playoffs. And if you remember rightly, he nearly got a 5th touchdown in this game, but he was tackled at the 2-yard line in the final minutes. And Shanahan called for a QB sneak. And Purdy went over for it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for me, it was the 4 from CMC. And watching the highlights back at dinner time at work today, I couldn't pick either one. Which was the 4 I liked the best?
No, well, funnily enough, like I said, I mean, I watched them again and I thought, you know what, this is a CMC game. And I think that's enough said, really. He was outstanding that game. And with it only being week 4, and I said this before pre-season as well, I said the first 3 games, it's just the kind of games where you play and you're getting up to game fitness, where you can play a full game at 100% speed. And I think game 4 proved that when CMC came out and performed like that, 4 touchdown game. And I think I'll be using that going forward every season. So on to game 5, and game 5 in itself, to be honest, it's fair to say game 5 is a memorable moment, the whole game. Obviously, it's against the old enemy, the Cowboys. I think it's fair to say we were all a little bit nervous going into that game because the Cowboys had started well. They had quite a good defence, and I think we all put this down as being quite a close game. Luckily enough, it wasn't. It was such a beatdown that the Cowboys, I don't think the Cowboys really recovered properly. And one of the players of that game I've got double starred as one of the best players of the season. And that was Kittle's second touchdown. It was a flea flicker to Debo, back to Purdy, and then down the end zone to Kittle. And that game there, I think the week before, the Lions had done exactly the same play. And I remember you saying on the review pod that, we nicked the Lions player, when in fact the Lions had nicked Bill Walsh's player from the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I was giving a cheeky nod to Andy. Dan,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us, buddy. Yes, you can certainly include George's choice of T-shirt, which has been modelled rather superbly by Martin at the many meetups since then. Paul has jumped on there, the demolition job of Dallas, exposing them for the flat track bullies they are. Yes, Noah, I know you watch Sun. I know you're probably cursing, but we said it on Monday. Smash the Cowboys 42-10. For me, it's probably the greatest regular season win at Levi's to smash the Cowboys the way we did. I knew you'd go for the flea flicker pass. So I was looking at George Kittle's other touchdowns, the fact that it was his first career hat-trick game for those fans in the UK. So Kittle with the 3 touchdowns. I love the Warner sack and forced fumble. I mean, Warner's game that night, Lee, got an interception and he had a team-high 8 tackles. So not only were we smashing them on the offensive side of the ball, I think, was it Gareth or Nagy said the night that they didn't think Warner had played quite so well this season. And I think you disagreed and said the start of the season.
I think Nagy said that, which I was quite surprised about because All-Pro Fred is Nagy's guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, both me and Gareth turned around and said, well, actually, at the start of the season, the only person's name you heard was Fred Warner's name.
Yeah. I mean, again, Brock Purdy delivered 4 touchdown passes. So given all the talk at the start of the season, the week before against Arizona, it broke Steve Young's completion in a game record, I'd say.
Yeah.
He's then marched into Levi's. He's obviously smashed the Cowboys. And it was just one of those amazing games. Everything that could go right went right for the 49ers. And I think it's a game that'll live long in the memory. And Martin, I think there'll be many of those T-shirts at the next meetup. So do share the link, buddy. I think Wayne's got one. I've looked at one a couple of times, but I think that's next on my list, Lee.
Yeah. So the next 3 games, I don't know if you want to skirt over these because the next 3 games, I did actually pick out players. None of them are double starred, but I've picked out their players. The Browns, obviously, Lenore, Warner both had interceptions in that game. The Vikings, nothing really stood out apart from the CMC receiving touchdown. And to be fair, I mean, both of those games, as we said in the season review, both of those games, we didn't play badly. They were both close games. We could have won them in the end. The Browns, obviously, we missed the field goal towards the end. And the Vikings, Kirk Cousins has probably had the best game he's ever going to have in his career. And typically it had to come against us. Whereas week 8 against the Bengals, there was a few good throws from Purdy in that game. There's a few good throws. But other than that, we were dire in that game. So I couldn't really pick out anything other than saying Purdy had a few good throws. So that's like weeks 6, 7, and 8 done. Week 9 was a bye week. Memorable moment? Probably not, because we knew where we were heading. And I think we were all confident in that. Even though we'd just come off the back of 3 defeats, I think we were all confident based on the first 5 games of the season that we would turn it around.
I think the highlight of the bye week was getting Chase Young. I mean, the Browns game, I mentioned it on Monday, and I'll mention it for the people who aren't here. Joe Staley joining us for a game. And again, we'll shout it out. He wasn't just there to meet and greet and take the photos. He was in the midst of it all.
Yeah,
he was flying the flag. And the Jordan Mason touchdown will live long in my memory because I celebrated that touchdown with Joe Staley. He was hugging me. He was high-fiving me. Now, the game didn't end the way we wanted it to end, but you can't look back at those London photos, Lee, and not have a smile on your face. Biggest ever meet-up.
Oh, no, I mean, definitely
Joe
not.
Staley in the house. What was funny is they teased people all week, hadn't they? And then I think I was at work on the Friday, and Joe Staley goes on Talk Sport and he's like, "Hi, guys. Yeah, I'll be joining the 49ers people on Sunday in London." And the cat was out of the bag, so we'd been accused of keeping that secret. We didn't know until it was let loose. Well,
yeah, so
I didn't know. You might have known.
Yeah, well, you know I know because of what I'm just about to say. The actual game aside, that whole weekend was kind of a highlight for me, a memorable moment. To be sat in the Friday night in a nightclub with Joe Staley drinking whiskies together, it's obviously something I'll never ever forget. Both him and his wife Carrie were unbelievable people, really easy to talk to. Joe is such an educated person as far as the history of California is concerned. He gave us a book to read, or he told us about a book to read, didn't give us a book. And that's on my kind of my watch list for when it becomes available in the UK. But yeah, I mean, that whole weekend was good. And the fact that when I turned up to the watch party on the Sunday and walked through the door, and Carrie came straight up to us to make sure I'd had some sleep since Friday night, it was quite interesting. But yeah, that was definitely a highlight personally for me.
Yeah.
So what we'll do...
She turned round and said, "So you got there before me, and I arrived, and then it was a bit strange because I was doing the live with John Chapman, you were helping Nick, and then at one point you and Joe were welcoming people coming in the doors, and Joe said to me, 'Can Carrie stand with you?' And I was like, yeah, of course you can." I mean, they were chatting family, kids, and everybody who came in met you, met Joe. Then they came over and gave me a hug, high five. About halfway through, she said to me, "You and Lee are probably more famous than Joe." And I was like, "No, Carrie, I'm not having that." But I think she was blown away by the love of the community, that not only were people coming in, and I think later on she commented how respectful the fans were to her and Joe. And they definitely said they would be coming back. If there's another watch party in London, Joe Staley was saying to me, he's definitely coming. So, and Martin, shared a little secret there. Is that the reason you didn't make the park run on Saturday morning, Lee?
That is definitely the reason I didn't make the park run on the Saturday morning.
Yeah. So
I mean, we didn't finish off until I think it was 2:30 on the Saturday morning, because Joe didn't get back to the hotel, I think, till 10 o'clock. So I was off checking out a venue with Nick, Caleb, Ali, and a few others there from the 49ers. And then obviously they invited us back to the hotel to meet Joe, and we were in there till 2:30 Saturday morning. Now, the reason Carrie was so concerned whether or not I'd had any sleep, on the Thursday night I was in London for a business awards, the Sunday Times Top 100, and me and my business partners didn't get back to the hotel till 6 o'clock Friday morning. So we'd been out all night drinking. I'd had maybe 5 or 6 hours Friday morning, and then I'm trying to think whether or not I changed hotels that night. I did. I changed hotels to the city to be closer to where the venue was, and then obviously the Friday night I was out until 2:30 with Joe, and then the Saturday night we were out until at least midnight with Martin, Al Ben, Dave Betteridge, and I think midnight was when we got the infamous tube journey back, when a young girl offered up a seat because she thought I looked so old, she'd give us the pensioner seat. So yeah, I had 3 nights where I was burning the candle at both ends.
I wasn't going to mention that. What I was going to finish off with...
I can see Dawn in the comments, and I'm just waiting for her to mention it.
I was going to say the last thing for the London watch party, gathering of strangers joined us. They were awesome. They are going to be joining us on either a pod or a live. So they're the song that we use at the start. We had to give a mention to that. So I interrupted you. So we're now on to the Jags game. Were you going to move on to that, or were you going to do something different at this point? No,
what I was going to say is I'll do the Jags game because the next game is the Bucks game, and I think obviously it means a lot to you, that one. So the Jags game for me, it's another double star. It's the Kittle touchdown, the one where Purdy had to step up into the pocket. He kind of had his arm blocked a little bit as he made the throw. But you could see Shanahan, as soon as the ball came out of Purdy's hand, Shanahan's already celebrating a touchdown before they're even getting anywhere near Kittle. He's already on the way back up the sideline, swinging his arm about with his clipboard in his hand. And that was a pretty special play, that. Not just because it was a 66-yard touchdown for Kittle, but because of what Purdy had to do to be able to make that throw. And it's the type of thing that we haven't seen in the past from the previous quarterbacks that's played for Shanahan. They haven't been the type that would step up in the pocket. They normally scramble or get down or get sacked. Whereas Purdy had the confidence to step up and make that throw because he knew that's what had to happen.
I think what was good for that game, Lee, is I'd done the defensive scouting report, and the Jags defense had quite a lot of interceptions and there was a lot of non-Niners fans giddy that we'd lost against the Browns.
Yeah.
They were saying the Jags was a big test. Not only that was my top player. I knew you were going to use the Kittle one. The background I'll give, I was sat in the front room watching that. Tracy was sat on the sofa next to me. She always jokes that she can never see where the ball is. And like you said, the pocket kind of collapsed, and then you just see the ball fly out. And as soon as it dropped, you thought, so I was up on my feet. Kittle runs it in. I'm jumping up and down because it wasn't a late game in the UK for us. And Tracy was like, how on earth did he get the ball to him? And I was like, I don't know. And then watching the game back the next day without the emotion, like you said, it was just awesome. And as well, that game, he has a career high with 148.9 passer rating. And the downside of that game was it's bittersweet. You got to give props to Shanahan. He tried his hardest to get CMC to break the record.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen. Martin Hughes doesn't remember that game. So, yeah, it was
funny enough, I was going
game.
to ask Martin whether or not he could remember that game.
So he blames Neil Watson. Yeah, Neil is a bad influence.
I can definitely say it wasn't Neil Watson's fault. Definitely say it wasn't Neil Watson's fault.
I'm glad Martin's mentioned Glasgow, though, Lee, because when you talk about what does success look like for the group, the meetups are awesome. Obviously, we'd been at London a couple of weeks before. I knew we were going out to San Francisco. So when they arranged this meetup in Glasgow, I really wanted to go, but I had to be sensible with the pennies because I knew we were going out in a couple of weeks. But the committee room number 9, where they were at, I've been there before for a Super Bowl watch party, and it was awesome. But yeah, seeing Martin flying that T-shirt, and I bet the train journey home the next morning, Martin, wasn't a clever one.
No,
but,
not at all. So one other thing about that Jags game, as you said, we were coming off the back of 3 defeats and then the bye week. My sister-in-law's a Jags fan, so she was quite confident going in that game. And at the time, the Jags were playing really well. I think they were top of the division. They were one of they had one of the best records in the AFC. And I think it was another game where we thought, you know what, this could be a real test for us going up against the Jags. But then ended up being a blowout. And I remember texting my sister-in-law, I think it was midway through the second quarter, because I think we ran out to a big lead straight away, asking how she was enjoying the game. And I can't repeat what she replied.
I'm going to say, when we were flying out, I did ask Ben how his mum had taken the defeat. And he said, it was mentioned once or twice, because your Ben's a man of few words sometimes, but it's a bit of a weird household, that one. A Jags fan, a Vikings fan, and a 49ers fan.
And a Patriots fan.
And a Patriots fan.
Yeah, so our Ben's younger brother was a Patriots fan. But he's like loosely a Patriots fan.
I'm going to say, I wonder if that is still true now.
Yeah, probably is not.
So, yeah, then week 11. So, the player that stood out was the bomb to Ayuk. And for a number of reasons. Basically, where we were sat in the gold mine, all our touchdowns were scored in that end. But you've seen games live. I haven't. To actually see the play unfold, Purdy just unleashed the deep ball. And as soon as it dropped, we knew Ayuk was in. And the fact that we were jumping up and down, we were celebrating together. I mean, Ted has already stole my thunder a little bit on TED Talks ball. Seeing CMC score the first touchdown while I'm in Levi Stadium wearing a CMC jersey was a special moment. But you may or may not know this story, but one of the standout moments for me, I was sat next to Ted, and Ted is very knowledgeable about football. Ted was talking to me about things happening off the ball. And I think it was towards the end of the second quarter, and we were just basically managing the clock, keeping the ball. And Ted said, this is going to be a running play. And Kittle motions out, and nobody goes with him. And I said, nah, we're not running the ball here, Ted. It's coming to Kittle. And Ted kind of mocked me because he was like, we're running the ball. There's literally a couple of minutes till half time. Ball gets snapped. Purdy rolls out to his left. Kittle up the field. No one near him. Purdy just delivers a dart, and Kittle takes it for about 20 to 30 yards up the field. Goes out of bounds and stops the clock. And Ted just turned to me and was like, how did you know we weren't running the ball? And I just said, from watching the game, Lee, like, nobody went with Kittle. When he motioned across, none of the defenders moved, and he just had oceans of space. And one of the things I will say, and you'll probably laugh at this, how quick the game goes when you're watching it live.
Oh, it does. Yeah. No. Yeah, I completely agree.
Um, yeah, and obviously,
So
George,
one of the things with one of the things with when you're there live, obviously during the stoppages, when you're watching it on TV back at home, we get the analysts from the UK, which we don't tend to pay any attention to. So you have that period where it kind of drags out. All you want is the football back on, and even though it's a minute to 2 minutes long, it feels a lot longer than that, which makes the game feel a lot longer than that. But when you're in the stadium, there's always something happening during those stoppages, and your attention immediately goes to that, and because you're enjoying that, then that period goes a lot quicker. Thereby, the whole game goes a lot quicker. So yeah, I can understand that, and I completely agree with it. For me, week 11, you've already mentioned Ajax Bomb. Yeah, I think that was one of my favourite players of the whole season. Not entirely sure whether or not it's because I was there, but it was a good throw, and obviously he ran down towards the goal line where we were. And the other one was Purdy's perfect game.
Yeah,
To be there when a quarterback has a perfect game, it's not quite as good as watching a baseball pitcher have a perfect game, but it's damn near as good as watching a pitcher have a perfect game. And like I said, second-year quarterback, he's doing it on the day that the UK faithful have taken over the goal mine. Perfect day to do it. Perfect Purdy.
I was just going to say George Kittle, Club 85, obviously scoring the touchdown.
Yeah.
And the last point, because I wasn't sure whether you were going to steal some off thunder, we were there for J.A. Brown's first career pick, right in front of us again in the gold mine. Obviously, Nadji was more excited because he'd stole him for the player watch. But as James put there, the Levi's faithful found out just that the UK faithful were most definitely in the house. We were loud, we were proud, and I can't wait to see the next group go over. And like you said, we weren't sure whether it was going to continue the gold mine because it was like in a trial period, but I believe the Niners are going to continue. They've had a lot of success from what we've heard, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. So before we move on to week 12, just answer this question. Can you guys bet in the UK? Yes, we can. And I hadn't realised that we could bet on the NFL games way before the US could. So I believe that in the US, you've only been able to bet on them the last 3 seasons outside of Vegas. I believe that's what it used to be like. You could only bet on them if you were actually in Vegas, or I think it might be in Atlantic City or somewhere like that. I think there'll be some nuances to that rule, but I can remember a couple of years back saying betting will now be allowed going forward.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to clarify that for us, Steve-O. I think I might have gotten that half correct, half wrong, but we've always been able to bet on the NFL. And not only have we been able to bet on the NFL, my bet on the Super Bowl kind of it took the sting away a little bit from the Super Bowl defeat. I was lucky enough to get Juwan Jennings at 375 to 1 with a £10 bet as MVP, and I cashed out at the start of overtime and managed to win £1,000 off a £10 bet. I don't know if you do cash out over in the States. So cash out, basically some of the UK betting companies, they will look at how much they can lose, the probabilities they are going to lose that, and offer you a percentage of that if you cash out now, and it de-risks them. So that's how I got it. I got £1,000 even though Juwan Jennings didn't get MVP.
So
it's not
what
often I bet on the NFL because it's complicated.
I'm going to say, so what Lee's failing to leave out there, Steve, is there's a well-known betting company in the UK. I'll just shout them out, Paddy Power. They're known for taking the fun, or taking the mick, as an English saying. So they'd poked fun at our watch party because we'd lost, and Lee was able to respond epically by saying, it's such a shame you didn't come back to the watch party in Leeds because my £10 bet turned into a £1,000 win, which was pretty funny. So I think Lee's looking for the, here we go.
That's it.
So we were featured quite highly, Steve, on Sky Sports in the UK because obviously it was the official watch party. and that was the tweet that we're talking about there. So that would have been pretty funny, Lee, if you'd been able to put a live reaction to that tweet.
Yeah, you're right. It would have been.
So
I mean, to be honest, there wasn't much of a reaction because I was we were still watching the game and we didn't know how it was going to go.
So he's put there that the you could always bet in Nevada was his first comment, and then he's put there that the casinos own it, so we can't do the online stuff. Yes, Paul.
Right.
Other betting companies are available. However, if Paddy Power would like to throw some sponsorship money this way, we wouldn't turn it down. However, before you answer there, Lee, because you teed me up so nicely for the Buccaneers game, I need to repay the favour because week 12, I was sat at home on my sofa, still getting over the jet lag. But you, my friend, do you want to share with the good people where you watched week 12?
So I was in Lumen Field. Technically my first road game. Obviously, I'd been to see the 49ers at Wembley twice. One of those was a road game against the Jags back in 2013. But I don't class that as a road game. So this was technically my first road game. And again, what a brilliant experience that was. I was expecting coming into Seattle and having a bunch of fans trash talk us the week that we were in there. But nothing like that. I was quite pleasantly surprised at how nice the Seattle Seahawks fans were. I would imagine it would be different if the Seahawks had been competitive last season, but obviously they weren't. I know the people I spoke to still thought they were in with a good chance of winning it with it being at Lumens. I didn't subscribe to that idea, but yeah, what a game! What a week in Seattle. And again, I've got a double star on one of the players here, and it's the Aiyuk touchdown late in the fourth quarter. It was an absolutely brilliant throw by Purdy, in between three defenders. I know there's a lot of argument over whether or not he threaded the needle. A lot of people saying, well, it's just a bog standard throw. I think JT O'Sullivan said that. He said it's not an elite level throw, it's the bog standard throw that you need to make. And he dropped it in between three defenders, so I could pick it up, and he managed to get in the end zone. And it was at the side of at the end of the field where we were as well. And it was the same as the CMC touchdown. I think it was late in the second quarter, where he kind of ran and twisted over a couple of defenders to get it over the line. So yeah, those two players there, I definitely remember quite well, as well as the Ambry Thomas interception when he went up against DK Metcalf. And every time DK Metcalf gets beat, I enjoy that immensely. So yeah, I mean, that was a great moment for me for the season. And what I'm finding is a lot of the players I've got double starred are all Aiyuk.
Well,
so
I was going to say that I thought you would go down the Aiyuk route, and I'm normally.
Really? See, I didn't. I did not think that, and I'm quite surprised myself looking at all the players that, I mean, I'm saying half of them are. So I've got 10 that are double starred, 10 out of 30 players that I thought, wow, those are absolutely fantastic players. But there's 4 of them. 4 of them are Aiyuk players.
Not from just
and
this
those
game,
are the double starred ones. No, not just from this game.
Yeah.
But those are just the ones that I've got double starred of Aiyuk. I've got other players from Aiyuk which I haven't double starred. I thought they were great players, but not the best players.
What I thought, on this game, because when we done the pod when you were back from Seattle, and I knew that Aiyuk touchdown stood out, but I do love a Deebo Samuel jet sweep, and that first touchdown, it was a 2-yard run, but Samuel comes across, the ball just gets popped to him. The fact that he just strolled in untouched, and if you think back, a lot of people were worried about that stretch, Seattle, Eagles, Seattle again. So I thought, show Aiyuk the love. I thought Deebo had a pretty decent game in that one. Like you said, the McCaffrey one was that weird one where he was kind of tackled, but he twisted in. And then I was thinking, looking at my notes, I think Javarius Ward played really well that game, from what I remember. Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah.
So we're talking moments, memories. I thought you were going to mention about a certain Seahawks fan asking you a question.
So I was just about to mention that, yeah. So aside from the game, and it might even be the most memorable thing that happened the whole season. So as I said, I mean, the Seahawks fans that we met were pretty good, reasonably okay. So there was a family sat right in front of us, and there was 4 or 5 of us sat together, 49er fans. And I've got to say, the first thing that he said annoyed us. But after that, it was fine. Because the first thing he turned around and he says is, "Oh, we're going to knock Purdy out for the season." I thought, oh, that's a bit uncalled for. But he's there with his 2 daughters. One of them, I think she was about 7 or 8. 7 or 8? 6 or 7. 6 or 7. The eldest one was probably 13, 14, and then his wife as well. And it got midway through the second quarter, and we were absolutely battering the Seahawks. And his youngest daughter turned around to him and said, "Daddy, why can we not be 49er fans? The Seahawks suck." And straight away, me and Andy Hudson jumped up and went to fist bump her. She kind of looked round at us with a side eye, looked at her dad and thought, just shook her head. She said, "No, I can't."
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
that was one of the memorable moments for me as well.
so Husey, right on time. Same
Yeah.
for me here. We all remember seeing Sherman as a Seahawk, stood the centre of Levi's, eating that turkey leg. So yeah, Martin, it was amazing to see us eating turkey at that place. It was a bit surreal, that game, because I was on the high of seeing my first game at Levi's, but then you and Andy, Ben, Steve had to leave us early hours on the Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I didn't think I'd make the Seattle game live because a lot of people had warned me with the jet lag. But to be honest, got back home about 7:30 on the Wednesday night. Remember getting home, unpacking my case, and Tracy was like, "So when did the Niners play again?" I was like, "Oh, funny you should ask, Tracy. Tomorrow at 1 a.m. on Thanksgiving." So it felt a little bit strange not doing the whole, celebrating all the first downs and
Yeah.
defense chants when we were obviously defending, but it was epic to see you up there. I mean, you joined us outside the so you went to the tailgate with John Chapman, but you went to a tailgate, and you left
Yeah,
that,
I went
remember, to
that's
join
right.
me, Gareth, Nadji on the pod.
To do a show.
To do a show, yeah. So that was a memorable
Yeah,
one for me.
I mean, to be honest, that day, I think when I was stood outside in just my jersey, it was only 6 degrees, but it didn't feel like 6 degrees because the sun was out and it was keeping us reasonably warm. The guy whose house I was stood next to nearly knocked us over in the car because he wasn't too pleased. I was stood filming on the sidewalk. I wasn't on the road. But yeah, he nearly knocked us over with his car. But yeah, memorable times.
Yeah, and so before I read James's comment out, I'll cover it up. So another moment, everybody. So as I said, Lee was at the John Chapman Rush road trip show with Breezy, Nicholas Prara. There was the Danish chaps were there with you, and there was one of the guys I follow on Twitter who's in the group. He's an American, and he's in our group as well. And he shared some video of all you guys walking to the game.
Oh, Brian Carter.
That's it, yeah.
Brian Carter.
At first glance, I didn't spot you and Andy, and I put my headphones
but
in.
you heard us.
And I heard the chanting that you were trying to get about. Was it Ayuk's on fire? Your defense is terrified?
Boss is on fire.
Oh, Boss
is on fire. Geno Smith is terrified.
So then I rewatched it back.
In our head, it sounded fantastic.
Well, to be fair, you had been out quite a long time before that, but it was just funny seeing the American reaction because Nick Clark, one of the things he wanted us to bring to the gold mine was a kind of British feel to chanting at a sports game, and seeing that video, that was pretty funny. So Brian, thank you for sharing that. I did share that on Twitter. I'll try and find it again after the show and share it further on. And James has just put there before we move on that he found Seattle a really friendly place. He said when himself and Cara Lou were trolling the Seahawks with the group flag at Lumen's Field in November 22, lots of locals came over to ask about the group, the flag. He said they were quite welcoming, so that's nice to see.
So interestingly, we actually took over a Seahawks bar after the game. So not far from Pike's Place Market, in fact, just around the corner, there's a Seahawks bar, which me and Andy had kind of given a wide berth to on the first couple of days we were there because it was obvious it was a Seahawks bar. Everything was Seahawks in it. And as we came out of Lumen's Field, we kind of looked for a bar that was going to be open late night on Thanksgiving. And the only one we could find was the Seahawks bar. So we went in there and it was full of 49er fans. So that was interesting to see as well. And the Seahawks fans that were in there, they were all good natured. The 49er fans were good natured. I don't think there was much trash talk, and everybody was just having a drink and talking football in general. So it was a nice atmosphere to be in.
Yeah, so that leads us on to week 13.
Yeah,
So
the game that we'd all been waiting for since January.
So
Yeah.
I was going to say that it was going to be one of the rare occasions you watched a game at home, but you didn't watch the game at home.
No, I didn't. I decided to go out and watch it instead.
Yeah,
Decided to go out
so
and watch it instead.
we were joined up in Newcastle. So Andy Norton, my friend who's a Lions fan, we always agreed to meet up and watch a game together. So we went up to the Grosvenor
Yeah.
Casino in Newcastle. It was me, you, your Ben, Glenn joined us from Edinburgh. Trying to think, was there some other Niners fans? Trying to think who was there. There was no.
There's me, you, Ben, Andy.
That's it, Andy, Glenn.
Lions, Andy Hudson, and Glenn Pringle.
Yeah, and then we met up with Andy and his mate who was a Saints fan. So we watched the Lions Saints, and then we watched Niners Eagles. So I was going to say we should give our moment, but I can see someone's accepted our invite. So
I hope he's got a moment for the Eagles game for us. So let's get him on.
Let's put him on the spot. Welcome to the
Hello,
49
Neil
Faithful
Graham.
UK Live,
Hello.
Neil.
How are you
How?
doing, mate?
I'm doing good.
I'll tell you what, that camera's well placed with the signed Montana jersey behind you there.
Perfect, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's worked out quite
it
nicely, that.
It has. So we up to the Eagles game, week 13. Do you have a favourite player or memorable moment from that game? Or is the whole game itself a memorable moment?
Well, the whole game was a memorable moment. I mean, when we were at the Super Bowl meetup, when we were at the pub opposite Ellen Road, we were all talking about teams we hated the most.
Yeah.
And I said, up until a couple of years ago, I'd have said the Seahawks, Cowboys, Packers.
Yeah.
But Packers have gone now. Eagles are there, and only because of their abhorrent fans. I can't stand them. So going into their place and giving them an absolute whipping was just superb, just brilliant. One of the highlights of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And I know what you mean about the fans. I think luckily the UK-based Eagles fans are a touch better than the US-based Eagles fans.
It only is a touch, because I've seen some comments from some of the UK-based ones that are you're following the footsteps of your US brethren, I can see.
Yeah. I've got to say some of them are like that, to be fair. Some of them are. I've got it somewhere, man. I've got it somewhere. I'll find it. I'll find it before. I'll find it before Neil goes. Yeah. When I was talking to the likes of to John Chapman has basically said the Eagles is the only road game he wouldn't take his family to. It's the only game where he's been to where he's felt uneasy.
Yeah.
Uneasy being there. Nicholas Paris said the same thing. He said the fans are just vile. You go in fact, even Nick Clark said it's the only place he's been where he's in the stadium itself and people are just getting right up in his face, screaming abuse at him, telling him he has to leave the stadium because it's their stadium and he's got no business being there. And it's almost like a British football mentality, that. And it's quite surprising you get that in US sports because it's all mixed. You don't have segregated areas, which is why there's so much volatility in British football. Because you segregate people, they're obviously going to become aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but when you penned in with your own supporters, they all feed off each other. And it gets to be like a tribal atmosphere. Where over in the US, it's not like that. You can go and you can have a good laugh with fans, you can do a bit trash talking, but it's all generally okay. Obviously, week in, week out, you do see videos going around where somebody's had too much to drink and they've kicked off. Sometimes it's with their own fans.
Yeah.
It might not even be opposing fans. So it's just basically drink fueled, where, the British fans isn't necessarily drink fueled. They don't need to have a drink to hate the opposing team. They just think every team's against them. So, yeah, I mean, the Eagles, I think that's the only place I would give a wide berth to if I was to do more road games in the US.
Yeah.
So outside of the Eagles game, when you go back to some of the other games that we've mentioned, is there anything else? Because obviously you were at the Goldmine game as well. Is there any other moments prior to the Eagles game?
I'll rewind to a period of time for the season, and then I'll fast forward to a particular play that stands out to me. So the period of time is obviously the trip to San Francisco. I mean, it was my fourth time going. The other 3 times I've been with my wife, Ruth. And Ruth, we've been together so long, she's still not clued up on the NFL. So it's a different kind of enjoyment when you go with the wife. You're doing sightseeing, you're doing all that. But when we went this time with 36 other UK fans, meeting up with 4 other podcasts while we're out there, it was a different kind of enjoyment, and it was. She's not here, but I'm not going to say a more memorable trip, but it was a different trip for obvious reasons.
It's all right. I'll text her and let her know what you said.
I mean, the parts of the trip there. I mean, when me, you, and Connor ran across the Golden Gate Bridge for that Saturday morning. I mean, it completed like I've flown over it, I've sailed underneath it, I've biked over it, I've been driven over it. I'd never run over it, so it kind of like completed the whole. I don't know how you put it, but I'd never run across it before. I'd pretty much done everything else. There is no train line, so you can't train or get a train over it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to burst your bubble, but you weren't running that much when we went over it on that morning either.
I'm quite surprised how well I did, actually.
You did do well. You did do well. And again,
I started feeling it on the way back. I was feeling it.
Apologies, I didn't realise it was going to be a 12-mile round trip.
Yeah, but once you get over to like Vista Point and you look back over to the city, and then Connor tells you we've done like 6.5 miles, it's like it don't look like 6.5 miles from where we're still looking back over to the city.
And you wonder why I said no to that invitation for that run.
Hey, I enjoyed it until about 3:00 in the Golden Gate tap room when I was falling asleep in the corner and Brett was taking the mickey out of me. A bit of a jet lag and a bit of a tiredness.
You mean Brett, your kindled spirit, because Brett can't talk for falling asleep. And Lee has photographic evidence, Neil, to back you up, buddy. So don't worry.
Yeah, but he was on the plane. I was in a bar. I was in a loud bar, and I was falling asleep. So yeah, the trip to the Goldmine trip is. I think I'm not going to forget that for a long, long time. There's just so much good stuff that went off there.
Yeah.
For my favourite play of the entire year, I'm going to fast forward to the championship game against Detroit. At half time, we'd still got guys like Jay Peplow, the ever eternal optimist, who was going, "We've got this. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Don't worry, we've got it." At half time, I was thinking, "Jay, we've got no chance. The defense just hasn't shown up." We got the ball. We kicked a field goal to get it to 24-10. Then the Lions started driving down the field again. They got a 4th down, and they didn't convert. And at that point, I was still thinking, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do it. And then the Ayuk catch was the point where I turned from this is not our day to we're going to do it, aren't we? We're going to come back here because we've so much over the season. We played well, but the luck hadn't bounced our way. And it was like you looked at that play and was like, finally we've got a bit of luck coming our way. And we got that, and that was the point where I started believing that we were actually going to do it. That play. And then the next drive for Detroit, they fumbled and we got it in to 24-24. But that catch was the point where I went from, no, I can't see it, to, I think we actually might do this.
So can I ask you a question?
I mean, you were there, Lee, obviously. Sorry, Paul, you weren't.
No, it's all right. I was going to say, Neil,
the atmosphere when things started turning.
I wasn't. I'm going to ask you a question, Neil. Half time, Lee is doing his best Nick Clark impression. What were you feeling like in that bar at half time? Because Tracy had said to me, just imagine what it'd be like, Paul. You didn't go. If you lost that game, just imagine what it'd be like. And at half time, seeing the footage sat at home. I mean, we were trying to keep spirits up in the Discord group. I was doing Jay Peplow Discord, but talk us through the feeling in the bar because
It was very quiet, and like I said, there was only the select few trying to pep everybody up, saying, we're going to do this, we've got it, and just I think I was stood at the bar at one point, and I was just looking across to all the tables and where everybody was, and just the looks on everybody's face. It was like, I can't believe it. We've come this far and just not showing up in the championship game.
Yeah, shell shock.
So how did it feel at full time?
I walked out of the box, and I was walking down to the train station because Ruth was picking me up from the Hilton Hotel just underneath the dark arches, and all the way from the box to the Hilton, I was just saying to myself, I can't believe what I've just watched. I can't believe it. Yeah. We were dead and buried at halftime. And yeah, I think you mentioned Matt McDonald, didn't you, in the podcast, that he would. Yeah. That picture where he's with Lee and Seb Chandler and everything. It was just that encapsulated everything on that night. The going from the depths of despair at halftime to winning it was just unbelievable.
So as we won the game, as time expired, what was the overwhelming feeling you had at that particular moment?
We're going to win the Super Bowl. I've waited 30 years, nearly 30 years. 1995 was the last time we won a Super Bowl, and I finally, coming back against a good Detroit team, I started to believe that, this is it. This is our year. We're going to get the Super Bowl. I hate saying that because all Liverpool fans say it every year, and it really annoys me. This year's our year. This year's our year. But I genuinely did think after we'd beaten the Lions that we were going to get, after 30 years, we were going to get number 6.
So obviously, at the end of the game, I was still technically working because I was doing the hosting job that night for Nick Clark, and I've got to say,
you did a brilliant job. Number 50, Joe Feliciano.
Yeah, I was expecting one thing to happen at the end of the game, and that was for you to scream at the top of your voice, "Do it for Yorkshire!"
I mean,
that would have made that game for me.
We were talking about moments, so I think Wayne released his photos, the Somatic photos, and I used one that you featured quite highly in, Neil. I think you're trying to help Lee get the crowd going with the 49ers first down. Now, I don't know what that. Seeing you do that, I know that you're saying it, and I used that picture on the social media for the next.
Oh yeah,
because I think it's well known. Obviously, you've been on this emotional roller coaster with all of us, Neil. I think back to meeting up with you for the first time in Bristol.
Yeah.
COVID, and then, like you said, you see me being like a giddy little child out at Levi's, and you were like, "I'm not missing seeing Paul running around Levi's."
Yeah.
And like you said, that championship game, I think we all had that feeling. The fact that we'd all been in the gold mine, the fact that we'd had, the disappointment of the London Watch Party defeat, but it just seemed everything was aligned. And I like that you picked the IU player. Was we mentioned it on the pod, first time, as you said rightly, luck went our way, bounced off his face. He pulls it in, and I felt really bad because I texted Andy Norton at half time saying that basically we were going to be winning this game by the end of the third quarter, and he was like, "I thought you said you'd given up drinking, Paul. I thought you burned at Leeds on the fireball with them lot." But I was living in eternal hope, and I didn't expect it for one moment, but.
No, I don't think any of us expected it at half time. And I think as the game on, there was still no expectation there that we were going to do it. But you definitely started to feel, we might do this. We might do this. But I think, me personally, at the back of my head, I was thinking, it's a 17-point deficit. They've absolutely battered us in the first half. Yeah, we can probably slow them down, but we're not going to stop them dead. And then, lo and behold, we completely stopped them dead. And I remember saying to Andy Hudson, so that fourth down you talked about, Neil, the one in the start of the third quarter, I turned around to Andy Hudson then, I said, if we stop them here, that's it, we win in this game. Because it's going to be such a momentum change. We've got the quality on offense to go ahead and do this. And for me, that was the pivotal play. And I think, even though it wasn't Yvonne Kinlaw who made the tackle, Yvonne Kinlaw, for me, had the best play on that fourth down because he took up to the offensive line and he basically barreled them back, which kind of stopped the run that they were going to do, and that allowed us to make the play. And I think he goes understated quite a lot because he doesn't have the stats that people expect him to have of a first round pick. And both the fourth downs in that particular game, Yvonne Kinlaw was pivotal in what he did, pivotal in the way he barreled through that offensive line, and he stopped the gaps that could have been there from the run through.
Yeah.
So he was kind of underrated for me. Or sorry, not underrated, underappreciated for that game.
He certainly showed up in the playoffs, I think.
He did, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
before we get too carried away, though, gentlemen, Eagles game, I think that's where it all began. Neil,
Yeah, it
where
did. Yeah,
the
yeah.
belief began. I think all of us are going to mention Deebo Samuel at some point.
Yeah,
Now-
I mean, I've got him down here twice, Paul.
Yeah, well, he scored 3 touchdowns on the night. So what I'd be interested in, there's 3 of us. I wonder if we've all got the same touchdown because I have my favourite out of the 3. I wonder if you two have the same one or a different one.
Right, so I've got 2 of his touchdowns. I've got one Ike touchdown, but I've got another one which I've double starred as one of my favourite players of the year. So the Deebo ones, I mean, he had a 46-yard touchdown run and a 48-yard touchdown reception after shedding a tackle. Both of them I thought were excellent plays. I thought Ike's diving touchdown in the end zone was an excellent play. Those were the 3 offensive ones. But for me, the play of the game came late in the game, and that was the Lenore hit stick with 3 minutes left in the game. It just knocked the soul out of the Eagles. I mean, you even had the commentators aghast at how heavy that hit was. And I think that's one of my overriding memories of the whole season. So I've got a few of them, and that's definitely one, Lenore's hit stick tackle.
So what touchdown for you, Neil, out of Deebo's 3?
It'd be easy to go for the 2 long ones, but I did like the jet sweep one. Because George was doing what George does and took out 3 guys. Took 1 on, moved up and took 2 out, and just gave Deebo a lane to just run in, and it's. But I said the third one to make it 42, something like that, which is just hammer the nail into the coffin and just humiliate him a bit. I did enjoy that one a lot.
It's funny, Lee, because we threw the invite out. We didn't know if Neil was coming on, and I'm smiling, Neil, because you're right. I was hoping you'd mention Kittle, because Kittle out in front made that one for Deebo, but I have to say that last one, because of the way the play design was played by Carl, but the fact that Deebo just broke that gap and just went untouched, like you said, rubbed salt into the wounds.
I don't think I've ever seen a play like that before, ever, because the entire offensive line was in front of him. Normally you see 2 or 3 guys on a sweep like that, but I think all 5 of the offensive linemen were out in front of him. It was I've never seen a play like that before, ever in 35 plus years of watching the game. I don't know where you are
through untouched, and like you said, the fact that we had all that emotion, all the trash talk. It's got to remember, a lot of non-Niners fans were, the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. They smashed you in the championship game. You're going to go into Philadelphia and you're going to get your asses handed to you. So the fact that, like you said, Neil, it just put the sprinkle on the top for me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned those 2, buddy.
Yeah.
Right, so we up to the Seahawks again, the home game. I don't have anything particularly double-starred on this, but I did enjoy the G.A. Brown touchdown, Kittle's 44-yard touchdown. But the one for me for that game didn't end up in a score. It was a Ayuk 45-yard touchdown where Purdy had to scramble out to his left and then hit him from 45 yards away. And that was a beautiful pass. And to me, it was more Purdy than Ayuk. Obviously, Ayuk getting into the space, but Purdy extended that play. And it was almost Russell Wilson-esque. And you know what? Again, watching the highlights tonight and watching how many times Purdy scrambled out and then hit wide open receivers. I remember watching games against the Seattle Seahawks where Russell Wilson used to rip us apart, and we'd all be sat there thinking, how the hell is their receiver so open? and it had nothing to do with our defensive scheme. It was to do with the fact that the quarterback had extended the play to allow the receiver to get that open. And that's what Purdy's doing for us. We have open receivers because Purdy can scramble and get rid or get away from the pressure to extend plays. And it's great to see. And I hope he continues to do it for the next 10 to 15 years.
What about you, Neil? The Seattle game at Levi's, what stood out for you, buddy?
Oh, nothing. It was a quiet game, that one, wasn't it? Pretty quiet game. Nothing went off that night.
No, not really. Yeah. Not really.
Just one of them passing games. Didn't really think much of it. We'll beat these.
Yeah.
Well, you've both disappointed me. I don't know whether you both agreed to wind me about this, but this was the candlesticking game. So again, we were all together, and CMC first play of the game. It felt like he was taking it in the house, but like you said, Neil, the way that Shanahan designs the plays, the fact that he just came out and said, right, first play of the game, CMC just boom. I thought he's got a touchdown here, but I did like the Debo long ball touchdown.
Yeah.
Again, I just
That's
thought
one of my favourite Purdy throws of the year. I love that.
We'd heard a lot of talk that Purdy can't throw, game manager, and I think this is where his MVP case for me was at its highest. 7th straight game with at least 70% completion yard, 368 yards. And like you said, Neil, he just seemed poised in the pocket. And that throw to Debo, I'm like Neil Lee. It's one of my favourites. And the way that Debo just absolutely destroyed Jamal Adams. And apparently
he didn't break step, did he, on that throw? If you watch Debo, it just keeps the same speed up. The ball just lands in his lap. It's a beautiful throw.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, on to week 15, the Cardinals. Again, this is one where I've got a double star. And that double star was Charvarius Ward's 66-yard interception, pick six. And again, this is one where I think it's one of my favourite plays of the whole season because it wasn't an easy pick six. He was right in the smack bang in the centre of the field. So he had to run through a few of the Cardinals players to actually get down there into the end zone and to run that at 66 yards. It was a great pick six.
Before Neil gives his thoughts on that, Tracy was eyeing in the kid's uniform and she's obviously paying a passing interest, like you said, Neil, with Ruth of the game. And she's like, what's happening? I'm like, oh, the Cardinals have got the ball. They're on attack. And then 10 seconds later, I'm off the sofa. I'm running around the front room. And she's like, why are you celebrating? And I'm like, yeah, because they've thrown the ball to us. And she's like, are they allowed to do that? I went, they're allowed to do that. They're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
That was the hat and T-shirt game, Lee. So other than that, that was all I wanted to say. So over to you, Neil.
That game kind of worried me a little bit. Because the Cardinals running on over 200 yards against us. So
they did, yeah.
I was like, you get to playoffs and you defend like that, you're not going very far.
Yeah. It was the first sign that we had an issue on defense. We had a real issue on defense. And obviously that was followed up the next week with the Ravens game, where I have literally listed nothing from that game as being memorable.
No.
Well,
less said about that game, the better.
I've got a confession for that game. So I said to Tracy I wasn't going to watch that game live, Christmas Day, Christmas night, and I knew she'd fall asleep. So that's the game. Lee was texting me, thought you weren't supposed to be watching this game, mate. And I was like, watching it on my phone, texting Lee on my iPad. And to be fair, Neil, I should have maybe gone to bed because the less said about that game than but
it was rotten.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game, that one.
Right, guys, I'm gonna jump off. I've got the little one to put to bed.
No problem. Right, it was great seeing you, Neil.
Thanks for having us on.
We'll have you back on again soon, buddy. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah. See you later, guys.
See you later, mate. Yeah. Right, week 17, Paul.
Yeah.
Week 17, I've got 2 double starred, and they're both Aiyuk.
I was going to say, just before we go into week 17, shout out to Neil. He's been a long-standing member of the community. He is definitely wanting to be more involved in doing shows like this. So it's great that he's jumped on that. He said he's got the little one there. I did think when he said Ruth wasn't there, I was like, who said men can't multitask? Because he was in charge of the little one, and he's joined us. So yeah, big shout out to Neil for joining us there. But week 17, this was a strange one for me because it was the first game that I didn't watch live all the way through. So New Year's Eve is a big night for Tracy and the family.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So we always go out. Now, what was good for me is we got the taxi from our house, and my friend who joined us isn't an NFL fan at all. He's a big Middlesbrough supporter, doesn't do NFL. But
So
Dougie
he doesn't like
came
football at all then, does he?
in. I thought I'd get that there from you. So, but when he came to our house, I had the football on, and he was there when Debo scored the first touchdown, and he was interested. Could see he was interested.
Right.
Then Jake Moody kicked the field goal. So when we got in the taxi, I'll be honestly, I thought that was it. Game's over. I'm not missing much here. And I kept checking the score on my phone, but I did watch the game back the next day. But at that point, I thought I've seen the most important players of the game. We ain't losing from this point. So I'll hand over to you because that's about as much as I know from that game.
So there was two players in that game, and even though Ajax double starred there, they were really Purdy players. So the first one was the 38-yard catch where the pass was absolutely inch perfect by Purdy to get it into Ajax's hands as he was running. He didn't need to break stride. And the other one was the 17-yard touchdown where Purdy was forced to scramble out, and then he leads Ajax into the end zone.
And he's pointing. And that was epic.
And to me, that showed composure and experience beyond his years. And it just goes to show what type of player we've got on our hands. He's going to be excellent. So those are the two from the Commanders game. Weekend 18 against the Rams. Absolutely nothing from that game. I mean, it was a game that we didn't need to win. We obviously rested 3 players, and we waited for the playoffs to happen. So the playoffs, I think, will make this really quick because it's still fresh in the memory. Divisional game for me.
Hang on.
Go on then.
You can't talk about the Rams game because Paul Scrimshaw is in the house. He's the co-founder of the Taylor Hawkins Fan Club League. That's what that game will be forever remembered. Come on. So can you remember the interception?
Oh, yeah.
It went off in the Discord group, and they had an official name that I can't quite remember the moniker of. But I'm just, all jokes aside, I know Paul's watching, so and he wanted to put a shout out there to Fred winding up DK Metcalf in the Seattle game. DK getting ejected, and he says it's solidified the changing the guard. We're joined by Justin, he's just got a and what we're talking about, Justin, is our highlights and memorable players,
memorable moments.
So you were saying what the playoffs now we're up to? Yeah,
so divisional game. There was a few players in the second half of the divisional game, but the one that obviously stood out for me was the Drake Greenlaw game-winning interception. Yeah, where I absolutely went batshit crazy when everybody else was like 30 seconds behind on the feed, just not being able to keep it in. So that one for me was a standout moment. It's not double-starred, but it was a standout moment.
Yeah, so for our American friends joining us, so we were watching this one at home, the Packers game. It was a late game. One in the morning start? 11? It was a late game, wasn't it?
11:30, wasn't it?
11:30 start. So there was me, you, Brett Sinclair, a couple of others on. So we were watching the game on our TVs. We were on a group video call. And the first half, there was me, Lee, and Brett. And at some points, Marth's stream was ahead. I was celebrating. Some points, Lee's stream was ahead. Brett was getting rather angry and kept threatening to drive to a different town to beat me up. I live in Middlesbrough, Brett, not Darlington. And like you said, Lee, that was what was circled on my notepad. But the fact that we were all agreed in the second half to be quiet and not spoil it for anyone. And then you were in the top corner. You were in the top corner of my screen. And I'm watching. And out the corner of my eye, I just see you going. And I was like, something good's happened here. Now, normally I'd be a little bit irritated. But at this point, I'm smiling, thinking, this game's going to end well. And then seeing the interception, even though I already knew something was good was happening. But then what was weird is whilst I then started to celebrate, you had a little look of horror on your face. Now, I know you're about 30 seconds to a minute ahead of me.
Yeah.
And this is when Dre Greenlaw is running around and not getting down. Chicken. So you went from celebrating to like, hang on a minute. And then so that has to be the moment of that game, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a double play, that one. A double play. NFC Championship game. Neil's already mentioned it. Yeah. It's got to be the Ajax helmet catch. I think he's right. It kind of was not so much a game changer in the actual game. I think it was more important to the fan base than what it was to the actual players on the field, because we as a fan base started to believe that the luck was bouncing our way. And it's ironic, really, because we had a fair bit of luck in that divisional game against the Packers. We ended up having a fair bit of luck in the NFC Championship game in the second half against the Lions. And then arguably all of our luck ran out in the Super Bowl when we could only recover 1 out of 7 fumbles. And as I've said on the other shows, you know, if we'd recovered even 1 of those fumbles to make it 2 out of 7, that could have changed the game entirely. And luck just deserted us. NFC Championship game, do you have any particular play in mind or moment of the game?
So because I knew Neil or yourself would probably mention the Ayuk one. It's a bit of a strange one, but you can see over my shoulder, number 7, Colin Kaepernick, favourite of mine. Some of my memories with him using his legs in the playoffs, tormenting the Green Bay Packers. So it wasn't as long as those runs. He didn't score a touchdown, but the Purdy scrambles where he got the 48 yards, and he seemed to finally show us what Kyle Shanahan had been looking for in a quarterback who could extend plays with his legs. Not necessarily running quarterback, Lee, but someone who, when under pressure, could tuck that ball and take off. And that third quarter in general, like Neil said, I think we all started to believe the tide had turned, and you just think one play after another. And then I just remember you video calling me from the box, and you were just like exhausted because you'd obviously been hosting. I'd been sat at home, and I don't even remember what we said. I just remember sharing that moment with, you know, someone who was one of my best friends. We put a lot of time and effort into these podcasts, the group, and me and you having that moment of like, just like on a video call, like, got the Super Bowl. Because me and you knew that if the Niners got the Super Bowl, Nick Clark was pulling the trigger on the Super Bowl watch party.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously seeing your shot the next morning, because you've put the phone down from me, you've celebrated, and then you've walked home. And I just feel like I shared in that moment when you did that shot on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an emotional moment coming away from there thinking, can't believe we won that game because of how badly we played in the first half. To pull it out in the second half and show such resilience, it was unbelievable. And luckily enough, I mean, ended up having a drink in the second half because I was so disappointed with the first half performance. I thought, oh, balls to this, I'm going to start taking the shots. And that's when the game changed.
So Justin's put there, he's put best memories of the season, what we've talked about. He's put, we all have our individual moments, but on reflection, his favourite memory is the lack of injury that we had to go through. So that's a fair point.
Funny enough, I mean, for me, the worst part of the season was the Drake Greenlaw injury in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there was that one.
That one there.
And Hufanga, when we were in the gold mine, seeing Hufanga go down on the field was like, because he's a firm favourite of ours. But the Greenlaw injury, like you said, so
the Greenlaw injury, when that happened, straight away I thought, well, that's it, that's the game gone. Because I saw both Warner and Greenlaw being the keys to keeping Kelsey under control, and they largely did that in the first half. Obviously, the second half, he came out and he just lit us up. And I think that changed us quite a bit because they kept on targeting Flanagan Falls when he was on the field and Oren Burks. So, yeah, big change. Super Bowl, for obvious reasons, the JJ touchdown pass to CMC, Joan Jennings. Yes, I have 1,000 different reasons why I enjoy that particular player. I think I'm going to stick with that one only for the Super Bowl. I am going to have to go back and watch it yet again for a 4th or 5th time. I've watched it 3 times already, just to get a little bit closure for myself. But is there anything in the Super Bowl that you want to pick out before we kind of pick your most memorable player of the season?
I mean, similar to what we've said before, I loved watching the game with all you guys. Tracy sharing the emotion. She leaned into me at one point and went, thought this was supposed to be enjoyable. It's very stressful. And she went, I don't know how you're coping with it. We've all got our own memories, and I loved watching with everyone. But Gary Thorpe, one of the admin members, was joined us, not supposed to be celebrating. because he'd had an operation on his foot.
Yeah.
And there's some video footage of whichever touchdown it is we're celebrating. I leap up, I'm running around at the front, and then next thing, someone's on my back. Now I'm obviously just dancing around, get a text off my mate saying, nice moves, which means we've clearly been on Sky Sport. When I sit back down, it was Gary that was on my back. And I was like, Gary, you're not supposed to be on your feet. And it's little moments like that.
Yeah.
But I said to you, I've said on the pod, Kaylee and Jasmine stayed up and watched the game, and Kaylee's a fully fledged fan. So preparing for tonight, I'd found a YouTube montage of all our touchdowns.
Yeah.
And she was like, what are you watching? And I said what it was. She went, send that to me. I haven't picked my favourite player yet. So she's still determinedly to be supporting Anna Faithful UK. So I have a feeling she'll be joining us at the meetup, which is pretty good.
Good. So favourite player of the season? I'm going to say I'm torn between two. I probably know which one it's going to be because I was actually there. And it's going to have to be the Aiyuk touchdown late in the fourth quarter against the Seahawks up in Lumen's Field, purely because it was just an unbelievable pass. And obviously we were there, me and Andy Hudson, right down at that goal line as well. That's where we were, and we just got such a great view of that. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, so I think Justin's on the same page as Neil, that it was the Aiyuk catch against the Lions. When you mentioned Aiyuk there, I thought, you're stealing my thunder. So for me, Aiyuk catch against the Buccaneers, the fact that we were there, the fact that it was a bomb, just everything about that game. As I've said before, it's the best 27-14 game you'll ever see, but that one play, when I think back, it just edges it for the CMC first touchdown because it was just a magical play. And to see such a, I want to say a wide open player, he broke the defender and he just ran it to the house. And we were there, we were right at the end. But I think we've done well there, Lee, to cover the season.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, the pleasing thing about it, and I recommend anybody does it, go back and look at all the highlights from each different game, because you'll surprise yourself at what an unbelievably fantastic season we had. I mean, even in those 3 games where we lost, I still picked out players in 2 of those games, 3 players across them. Actually, I mean, picked out more than that. The Browns was the Lenore and Warner interceptions. They were both good players. CMC receiving touchdown against the Vikings. That was a really good play. And all the really good throws that Purdy made against the Bengals, even though we kind of stunk up the place in that game against them. That was the first game when I really thought, you know what? We might not be as good as what we think we are. But we still made some good plays.
Joe Burrow was good in that game. Now, I haven't mentioned Connor Ryan for a few weeks because he's been hurting after the Super Bowl loss. He's been getting ready for his flag football season. But it was interesting to see Connor was one of those who mentioned in the group earlier today that he stepped away since the Super Bowl loss.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to reach out to him. He only lives around the corner. I'm going to have to go give him a cuddle and tell him, Connor, don't worry, son.
Give him a fireball. That's what he needs. He needs a fireball.
Yeah, he'll stay away from me for the fireball. But I do want people to go back and watch the highlights of this year because it didn't end the way we wanted it to end. There's only ever one team at this time of the year happy. The Gridiron magazine dropped yesterday, Lee, front cover, Patrick Mahomes, and I thought, I don't even know if I can bring myself to read it. Tracy was like, you're normally excited when that magazine drops. And I was like, do you know what? I'll just put that away. So, like others, I've had my moments, but because we've kept going with the lives, we've kept going with the pods, I think it's helped. Like doing the season review on Monday, we had such a blast. And I thought, when you said, all right, we're going to do our top moments of the season, we've talked for an hour and 30 minutes here. We could talk for another hour and 30. And now we've got things like this. You forget, Christian up the sideline, face planting Weatherspoon was pretty damn good. Justin to put that, the last second pass to Jordan Edison against us stands out. Like you said, that half, I said it on the pod, I thought Ward had the pick, and then next thing it's ripped out of his hands, but we're not quite ready to move on to the draft talk yet, but we are going to, aren't we?
We are. I'm just going to stick that one up again. So that was the player when Wilkes was fired.
Yeah.
That was the player when he was fired. They should have made the change during the bye week. I know it's easy for people to turn around and say, "Oh, you should never make a change like that middle of the season." The Ravens did it back in 2012. They got rid of the offensive coordinator midway through the season, and they went on to beat us in the Super Bowl. It can be done, and to me, that was definitely the play where Shanahan lost all confidence in Wilks. There was definitely a disconnect there.
We are going to talk some of the news, obviously the new coordinator, the draft, the free agency, but we do tend to have a bit of a structure at the 49er Faithful UK. So we've done the season review. Obviously, we've talked about our top moments today, but we are going to be doing our very own awards show coming up soon. Is that right, Lee? You can say it better than I can. I always say it wrong and get us kicked off YouTube.
No, so... Yeah, so we can shorten it. So I'll tell you what it's called. It's called the 49er Faithful UK Awards. And the shorter version is the Four Fuckers. So that's what our awards are called. We've had it for the last 3 seasons now. So we're looking forward to doing that. Our next podcast, we're actually going to be recording tomorrow night, I believe. It's going to be a free agency preview podcast. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, did we agree to do the award show live on Monday?
We did. So that's what I was building up to. So we've got it full steam ahead. So free agency pod, we will be recording that tomorrow. And that will drop Friday, possibly Saturday. But breaking news, I didn't have the banner ready. Hang on. Breaking news, as El Presidente said there, we are going to bring you a very special live edition of the pod on Monday. Are we doing 8 o'clock UK time?
Yes, it'll be 8 o'clock, yeah.
So 8 p.m. GMT, 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Got that right. We will be doing the 49er Faithful UK Awards, or the Four Fuckers, as Lee says, live on Monday. So it'll be great for everybody to join us. And I think we still need to tell people how to...
We do. So I'm going to pick one of the vlogs I did. It might be the full vlog, the full Monty, which contains every episode. As I said before, we try to get our watch hours up. So what I think I'll do is I'll pick 3 things within that vlog that you need to identify or get the correct answer to. And then everybody with the 3 correct answers, we will then run a random draw. And whoever wins that will get the Joe Staley bobblehead. I think what we'll have to do is basically request you to cover the cost of the postage, because obviously we don't make money from this. But yeah, I mean, it's a Joe Staley bobblehead. It's a nice giveaway to have.
Brand new. In the box. There it is, unopened.
Yeah.
So
and that's courtesy of Paul Scrimshaw.
This one's Paul Scrimshaw. So we have 2. So this will be the first giveaway. So we have 2 bobbleheads and we have a red 49ers cap, but we're not going to be greedy and do all the giveaways straight away. And also, Lee, I have a couple of the patches.
Yeah.
So we are trying.
You know what, Paul? I've got another idea, because we've got 2 bobbleheads. So one of them, I'll pick out 3 things in the vlogs where you have to go and watch them and basically pick those out. The other one, we might run, and we're going to have to do this quick, Paul. So we're going to have to do this pretty much tomorrow or Friday at the very latest. We might run a poll across Discord, across Facebook, Twitter, on who the 49ers' first free agent signing is going to be.
Oh, I like it.
No, that's a plan.
That is a plan.
Yeah.
I like it. So
because then it helps people to get into the whole free agency thing. They'll go and have a look and find out what our needs are, what they think our needs are, and who we think we'll target. So it makes you think about that one. And then obviously all the correct answers, again, will go into a hat. And when I say a hat, it'll be a virtual hat. It'll be random.org. We'll put you in a random draw and we'll draw that. So I think that's the way to do the 2 bobbleheads.
So Martin is getting the bees in for the award show. What we like to see, Martin. Justin asked, have we got it's 100 watch hours to go, isn't it, Lee? Before we
Yeah.
hit what the barrier is on YouTube.
So I think when I checked earlier on, we had 120 hours left to go before we hit that 3,000.
So yeah, Justin put it was 128 last week. So to be fair, Justin, we've
110
come
hours.
a long way from where we were. We're still blown away by the 1,000 subscribers. We're still blown away by people who tuned in and watch. So let's have a look.
So the thing is with the watch hours, because we're now over a year of having basically a YouTube show, it's 3,000 public watch hours in the last 365 days. So the only way we can increase this is by getting more watch hours than what we had this time last year. So it will go down and up. It'll fluctuate slightly, which it has been doing for the last couple of days. We now at our highest level that we've had it at, and we're only 110 watch hours away. At the start of January, believe it or not, we were 900 watch hours away. So we have increased it considerably.
And what Lee has said, I'll echo. If, for example, the subs keep going up, the watch hours go up, if this turns into something where we start receiving a regular stream of income, what we would be doing is obviously once the costs are covered, we would be doing things like more giveaways, which is what we've agreed between the four of us. So it's not as if we're going to be making any money. The main aim is to bring the content to you guys, cover the costs, and then I'd be so excited to do like signed merchandise giveaways or what the people want. So Justin has asked who are the candidates, I think. So basically it's up to you, Justin. So what we want you to do, like Lee said, is tag us, tweet us.
Yeah. So what I would say is we will rule out any re-signs of our own free agents. What will be is an external free agent signing. So who will be the first one we sign? So obviously that starts when the legal tapping up period begins. So the first one that is announced, I think that's the way we'll do it.
So El Presidente likes to tease information, people. So what he means is we're going to be recording the first episode of Free Agency tomorrow. So you will want to tune in to hear who we think is going to be the first signing. And that might help you get your hands on one of these. Now, that might have been done by accidentally, but knowing you, how I know you, that might have been done on purpose.
Gets the podcast downloads up as well.
It does.
We're not far from 50,000, to be honest. In fact.
Is that all time since you started the podcast?
Yeah, all time. All time. We may even be there without us knowing it. Because I think we were 280 away before I published the latest podcast. And I know with it being the off season, you do tend to see a drop in downloads.
So Justin wants us to make $1 to you, Justin. But he has no idea what a quid is, but he wants us to make it. So I love the support. And he's put, if we get him on the show, he'll damn rattle everyone's ears. So Justin, we did put the link in earlier, but you've just missed it because we will be finishing off very soon, reluctantly, only because it's coming to 2010 at night over here in the UK.
We are 57 downloads off 50,000 for the podcast.
That's pretty epic. I think I'm
6 seasons. 6 seasons. So this is season 6.
I remember when I first joined, I used to do it on my iPhone with my AirPods in, and then it's just progressed so far.
Well, the first season we started doing the pod again when we brought the pod back. I was working away every week. So on a Monday, I would be God knows where. I think I was in Woking at the time. So that's where I was working. And I'd be sat in a Premier Inn bedroom with an external mic and my laptop doing interviews or doing podcasts in a Premier Inn down south. And hoping that my phone, because I was having to tether to get the guest on, hoping my phone would keep the signal, keep the bandwidth to be able to do the show.
So what we've decided, and I'm going to tease some news of our own. So when we finish recording Monday, Gareth, who's the host with the most, he has the most thankless job in sports entertainment. He's teased some new ideas, hasn't he, Lee? So we had the score prediction game this year. we may have some different. And obviously, me and Lee had our infamous battle, which Lee won. I said, well documented. More than Lee said, fantastic. So we might have a slightly different version of that game that everybody could play along with. And I can't wait to break more of that. We haven't finalised it yet, but I'm doing my best Lee Gowland impression, given that my name tonight is Paul Gowland. That one was just for you, Martin, because I know that tickles your fancy when Gareth said that. So looking at the comments, so yeah, Brian Davies.
Well, it wasn't Brian Davies, it's Brian Davis.
I was going to say, Brian joined us in Leeds, which was epic to see. It was you and Brian when I first started on the pods, and then it just kind of evolved. I don't even know how we got Gareth, Nadji, Neil.
So we started having guests on. Yeah, and then I continued that when Brian was busy, because Brian ended up changing jobs, which kept him busy too often to actually come on the podcast. So I think I did a few podcasts just by myself. I'm certain I did, which I was okay with, but it's better with guests. Definitely better with guests. Yeah, we definitely all God knows where on a Monday morning, especially after watching NFL games.
No, we're not related, Justin. So on Monday, Gareth did his smooth introduction, as he always does, and then he handed over to me, and he went, Paul Gowland. And I don't know who was more stunned at first, me or Lee. So when I was preparing for the pod tonight, I said to Tracy, I'm going to have to crack this joke, aren't I? And she went, how are you going to be able to do it without you both laughing? And that's when I came up with the idea of just putting the name on the screen and then just introducing El Presidente. So we had to give a cheeky nod to Gareth and Nadji, because that was a bit of an in-joke, Justin. But if you want to know more, go back and listen to the pod that we released yesterday, and it'll be fully explained on there.
Yeah.
So, Lee, I think we've covered everything and more that we wanted to talk about.
We have. Longest show yet.
Yeah. Well, we will be back next week. We haven't quite decided the topic. I will say, if anybody wants to join us as a guest, do reach out. It is something we've tried over the last few weeks, and it seems to have gone down well. You're keen to get more and more people on. I know Jessica, who is the latest addition to our admin team, is going to be joining us in a couple of weeks. Also, if you've got any topics that you want to let us talk about, want us to discuss, please feel free to drop those. But as we said earlier, we will be back tomorrow. I believe there's just the three of us tomorrow, Lee. I think Nadji's busy.
Yeah.
Which is
Nadji's working, so me, you and Gareth. We'll talk through which one of our free agents we should actually re-sign, who we should let go, and what we should be targeting in free agency come next Monday.
But he has promised us, people, he's going to be joining us on the live, and I'm looking forward to getting Nadji on the live. Maybe in a couple of weeks, he might run through some players or break some stuff down that people have asked Lee, some game tape and things like that. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe. Go Niners.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, Deke Clark, Garrison Hurst.